what I noticed is that in every book you read about National Socialism, they're talking about all these things the Nazis were doing, and then there's always this strange, like, green thing that they talk about that's it's off to the side, and it's like they don't know how to explain it, but it's there, part of the historical record, but it's like, what's this over here? And then they go back to what they want to talk about. So what I did, I strung together all of those discussions that I had read and put them all together into a coherent understanding of what this really stands for. When you put it all together, you realize that this is serious. And at root of National Socialism was the natural man.
Okay, now we will continue our discussion with Mark Musser and how he found the connection between environmental mysticism and National Socialism in Nazi Germany, and what that led to.
And then I looked into the history of stormwater, and I found out that the primary guru of what we call stormwater management was Alwyn Seifert, and the Nazis called him Wild Alwyn. So I wrote an article about this guy, about basically the green movement connected to National Socialism. And the city of Seattle just blew up, just a big volcano. Because we had a trade magazine. Our trade magazine went to every newspaper in the state. It went to many radio stations in the state. It went to every press thing in the state. It went to all of our builders that belonged to our association. And we were, pretty powerful organization at that time. And so everybody got really mad. My boss got in trouble, from all the people.
Because you uncovered this.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then I had an interview on with the Seattle Post-Intelligencer there. I mean, interesting. The interview was pretty good, but the title was bad. They made fun of me in the title, but if you actually read the article, it's pretty good, not bad. And then Cairo TV, the Seattle TV news, they did a hit piece, 5 minutes on me. 5 minutes on local TV news is an eternity. Okay, that is long. And half the things I said weren't even true. Okay, and so all this stuff is going on, and my boss said we can't talk about this anymore because he was in trouble. And anyway, so what I did, I realized there's something here, and I started to research it. And I just did it individually. I just disconnected from work, and now I have this book. And so,
can I say something about the book?
Yeah.
So there are multiple iterations of this book. I have I believe it's the first edition, which is a very thin book in comparison to this. And then I had to get the expanded edition, and then I got another expanded edition. And back then it was called Nazi Oaks.
It's 10 years.
That's right. And now it's this.
Yeah.
And it's awesome because it's a deep dive in. And Mark, you did a masterful job in working through not just simply the research needed, but understanding the ideology, understanding the people, the thinking. That's a monumental task.
I agree.
This book really needs to go
every
everywhere.
Person that goes to college should read this book.
I would agree. So to that point, though, Mark, I have other books written by scholars who tackled the subject to some extent.
Yeah,
but nobody's tackled it with as much depth as you have.
Yeah, one person after they read this, they said on the Amazon or something, I can't remember what it was, but they said, like, well, you've read, I can see you've read a lot of the
you read a lot of the bad guy stuff.
Yeah, well, a lot of the stuff on National Socialism. I mean, I spent a lot of time reading a lot of books, even all of the classic books too on National Socialism. And so it's really, what I noticed is that in every book you read about National Socialism, they're talking about all these things the Nazis were doing, and then there's always this strange, like, green thing that they talk about that's it's off to the side, and it's like they don't know how to explain it, but it's their part of the historical record, but it's like, what's this over here? And then they go back to what they want to talk about. So what I did, I strung together all of those discussions that I had read and put them all together into a coherent understanding of what this really stands for. When you put it all together, you realize that this is serious. And at root of National Socialism was the natural man. So instead of the new man, as we were discussing earlier, the new Soviet man, that you're going to get their utopia through industry, human progress, classes will no longer be real because we've produced so many goodies for everybody, everybody's going to be happy. I mean, that's sort of the utopian Marxism. The Nazis wanted to get back to the natural man, the guy who's closest to nature, because they believe that the evolutionary laws of nature are connected to nature, of course. And if we want to really follow nature's evolutionary laws, we have to get back to nature itself.
So it's really a form of romanticism.
Yeah.
Deep romanticism.
Yes. And a lot of people don't realize that the original German romantics were sort of they laid the foundation for Darwin and his, Darwin loved Goethe, for example. Humboldt is another very important person. When Darwin goes on the Beagle and he gets on the ship and goes to South America, he's repeating what Humboldt did years ago. And Humboldt and Goethe really laid the foundations of what later became known as geography, environmentalism, romanticism. I mean, they played a big role in that. And that's the idea. We go back to the past to recover something that has been lost with our modern age. And they want to, and they blamed Christianity, reason for that problem. Yes, reason has its problems, of course. But the Enlightenment and Christianity, strangely, were kind of together. They were together for a while. And so when they started to rebel against both Christianity and the Enlightenment, they kind of mixed them together.
Right.
And that problem is still with us today, even in many discussions about, in churches, even the higher criticism, that's going on, the Enlightenment criticism of the Bible. You see a lot of this in biblical commentaries, even today. I mean, it shouldn't even be there, but it is. And so people associate the Enlightenment with the Reformation, when in fact the Enlightenment was trying to set aside the Reformation, and they should have never been put together like that. So when the Romantics wanted to set aside reason, they also, of course, did not like the Bible either. So they were setting aside both of them. And so this leads us into the world we live in now. We have that initially the Romantics were all about feeling.
Yes.
But then they kind of thought, well, this is too touchy-feely. And so then they became like will. Now we're going to be strong about this. And Nietzsche was the guy that did that.
And now we've moved from will back to feelings.
Well, and now it's just let being be.
Exactly. But it's feelings with the license of the crowd.
Yes.
The crowd gives us.
Just let it be.
That's right.
Let them.
The crowd is the determinant.
Right.
Yes.
And that's Heidegger.
Okay.
So Heidegger realized that National Socialism had a problem with, they had a problem with will. And he realized that during the 1930s, the Nazis actually betrayed their original principles of what they stood for because of the war. They had to go back to industry. They had to build up the war, the tanks, all the things they had to do to get ready for this war and just try to survive it. So Heidegger viewed this as a betrayal.
Okay.
So then he gave up on will pretty much. And then now it's going to be, let's just let life be, like John Lennon's song, Let It Be. And so that will become the prevailing postmodern framework that really dominates, even today, our society.
Okay, so let's take a step back just a little bit. And what I want to ask about is, because I think when people that are, are very committed to the environmental movement, when they hear that there's a connection between Nazism and the environmental movement,
Sure. Yeah.
what they are going to hear is that we are claiming that Nazis, or they're trying to establish Nazism through the environmental movement or something like that. And I think if we take a step back, it sounds to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, it sounds to me like Nazism was more of a growth out of a philosophy
that preceded
it. And the environmental movement is growing in in a similar fashion. It's not that there's necessarily a direct link between
Right,
Hitler and the modern.
Yes, precisely. So I mean, if you look at a river, okay, for example, you got lots of tributaries that go into it, and that's exactly what's going on here. Okay, and so you had a lot of tributaries that are not, you could call them proto-Nazi. Okay, and in the sense that they contributed to what later became National Socialism, and they absorbed it, and they put it into their own organic or holistic worldview, and then put it into practice. And so when I talk about eco-fascism, I'm not talking about eco-fascism as a metaphor. I'm talking about real history. Okay, it's one thing to call someone an eco-fascist like a metaphor that most people will ignore. This book doesn't do that. I'm talking about historical facts, which is very different. And so what is eco-fascism? Well, National Socialism, its historical record tells us exactly what it is. And so just follow the record and you'll see what it was. And it wasn't like what you would call a pure environmentalism today, but they were the progenitors or the fathers of the sustainable development. I mean, they invented it. The Nazi regime was the first political regime in the world to start practicing politically ecology.
Okay. Now, how did?
But it doesn't mean they were like the perfect ecologist or.
Right. And even before them, you had Vladimir Lenin put nature preserves in place.
Right.
Lenin put the nature preserves in place from a more utilitarian point of view.
Which is what they're against.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what the Nazis did the opposite. It wasn't utilitarian. It was mystic.
At least in theory.
Right. At least in theory. It was mystic. There was an
because of the war, they
it.
had to contradict their original theory.
Exactly. Yes. So can you then jump from, we haven't even scratched the surface of Nazi ecology, but I'm already jumping ahead here, sort of with that, Mark. Can you jump a little bit from the green movement within the Nazi regime to the Green Party, which emerges out of Germany first?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the original Green Party that in Germany, they were basically funded and built by real Nazis. They were actually, card-carrying, Nazis back in the day. The big book that put it together was Gunther Schwab. He wrote this book called Dance with the Devil back in the 1950s. And he was all concerned about global warming back then too, and every other ecological problem that you can imagine. He was an Austrian Nazi, okay? And that book was very popular in continental Europe. It sold lots of copies. And with the money that was made of that book, that became the foundation for the Green Party in the 1980s.
The Nazi Green,
yes.
Or the German Green Party, or the United States Green Party?
Exactly.
Yes.
Both.
It becomes an international party.
Oh.
Yeah. The Green Party becomes
the German Green Party was established by real Nazis.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and that's just verified historical fact.
Yeah, they don't like to admit this, and they tried to do all kinds of things to change it all, but I mean, it's a fact of history. Okay. So now, back in the 1930s, the things that the Nazis did to show that they were ecologically minded. Number one, the first thing they did in 1933, really one of the first things they did, they passed an animal rights law. And so they didn't want animal experimentation. They were against it. And so they passed a law to regulate that severely. And sadly, one of the most important features of this law is that they forbid Jewish kosher slaughter as being too cruel to animals. So the first attack on the Jewish meat supply, their food, was this law that forbid how they practice kosher slaughter. Okay, so that's going to be part of the discussion. And then in 1934, they had what they called eternal forest practices. Okay, sustainable forestry, and so that they were really heavy into that for a time. Hermann Goering he loved that kind of stuff. I know people look at him like he's this hunter and he goes out and kills animals and all this, but he thought of himself like an Indian in the sense of Native American. It was something spiritual. Yeah, noble. Right. Even Hitler criticized him for this, okay, because a lot of later on environmental historians criticized Goering for loving the hunt. But even the Fuhrer, he said, He said, first you save the animals and then you shoot them dead. It was a criticism from the Fuhrer against, it's the same one, okay. The same criticism that later on that environmental historians are using against the fact that Nazis weren't really green. Well, Hitler said the same thing. I've read enough to where I can, sort some of that stuff out. And then you have what they call the Right Nature Protection Act, which is really the worst thing that is everywhere in our society today. This is where they have the right to regulate private property. It's one thing for you to set aside a preserve, Mount Rainier National Park, North Cascades, where I'm from, or maybe something in Ohio, okay, for a state park, whatever's going on. But to require people to basically regulate like a park is another thing altogether. And that's what they started to do. And today we call them environmental impact statements, but the Nazis were the first one to require any business to do what you would call, they called them environmental effects reports. And they'd have to be turned into the state.
Now, did they...
There you have environmental social engineering over private property.
Okay. Now, in doing
That's
that...
dynamite. That's dynamite.
When they started building up the Nazi war machine, did they have to mitigate the restrictive effects of those kind of laws?
This is the argument of the Greeners. Is look at how they compromised. They had to go cut a bunch of wood, and they had to go do this and that. So they compromised all of their so-called, practices of the Green movement in order to gear up for the war. That is true, okay, but it's not because the Nazis didn't care about ecology. It's because there was a conflict and they weren't able to bring it together. They wanted to. If you look at the 4-year plan, was when it was initially designed, what later became the economic plan for National Socialism, and look at the original document signed by a bunch of people, okay, that people that we all know, heard of their names. They all sign it with this green language. The 4-year plan, sustainable development, it's all there on the 4. I have the copies of this at home sitting in my, I can't read it very good because it's in German, but I can recognize the names. Albert Speer, I mean, you've got some pretty important people are signing that document. Hermann Goering, and their desire was to have sustainability. They were going to bring together the economy and nature together in a good way, not as the Jews and the Americans and their wild capitalism. See, they were going to bring it together into a holistic way. They couldn't do it. It's a fantasy. Okay. The idea of sustainability, harmony with nature, or even harmony in general, guys, think about it. It's a fantasy. Okay, my life is feast and famine constantly. I'm sorry. That's all it is. We live in a fallen world. Okay, you're never going to fix that problem. But this is what they want, some kind of a place of rest, like a place where things are just harmoniously working together. And it's not there.
Right, we want to build Eden in our image.
Exactly.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were trying to build a sustainable Garden of Eden. That was their plan. Their war plans were to go east.
Yes.
And the Marxists were destroying everything because of their industrialism. And their plan was to turn the entire Poland, Ukraine, Western Russia into a garden park of sustainability for the Germans. And then get rid of the populations in the process.
Oh, wow. So
that's what they were doing.
Space.
This is what World War II is all about. And they were going to cover Ukraine with windmills. They had all kinds of schemes like this. They were master planned communities. Was going to be the desire in Poland. They were going to set it all up to where man was going to be sustainable with nature. And that's the natural man, that's the progressive natural man where we're all headed to. And guys, it's the same today. It has not changed. I mean, this is what AI is doing. This is what the environmental movement is doing. They want the same thing. And it's not going to work. I mean, because it's a fantasy that cannot be realized this side of the grave.
Yeah. So, okay. This brings up something interesting. I don't want to make this into a huge rabbit trail, but just a point of interest. So in March, George and I and our research partner, Audrey, and her husband, we all went to South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And the conversation at South by Southwest was all on the issue of AI.
Uh-huh.
What was fascinating was the younger generation, like Gen Z, or Gen, how do you guys say it down here? Z? Z?
Z.
Okay. It's us Canadians that use Z, not.
By the way, that's the name for that's the letter for the Russian army is Z.
Okay. All the Z21, Z21s out there.
Z. Yeah, it's just.
But what was fascinating in the conversation with Generation Z or Z was that they were in conflict, internal turmoil,
Right.
because they were against AI,
right,
for the very reason that for all of their growing up, they have been told about catastrophic climate change.
Yeah, right.
And so they were like, we can't adopt AI because of climate change.
Right.
But if we don't adopt AI, we're not going to make it in the marketplace.
Right.
And the angst was real.
Right.
They were just torn by this, Mark.
Right.
So I find the contradictions fascinating.
Well, they've given us this contradiction.
Well, hugely.
Yeah. And so here it is. AI requires super power, gigantic power. We don't have it right now. And yet they've shut down gas and oil. Okay. Okay. And they're going to give you a windmill and, solar panels, it's just madness. Okay.
Yeah. One thing as we kind of look at what's going on, with your research, can you explain to me like all the driving factors that pushed the Nazi apparatus to the point that pushed it to? What role did the philosophical thought that underpinned their ecology philosophy? What role did that play? Was it a minor part? Was it a foundational part? Was it a major part?
Well, in general, the nature-based philosophy is the foundation of National Socialism.
Okay.
Out of that, you would have like ecological,
initiatives,
tributaries would come out of it.
Okay.
So, but the main point was the nature-based philosophy, and that involves number one, biology, evolution, social Darwinism.
Okay.
So what the Nazis wanted to do was to apply Darwinian theory politically. You guys, you English people, Americans, you're just talking about it academically. We want to put this into practice. And so, a lot of people complain about America, being involved in the eugenic movement. And I get it, but the Nazis, the Germans were ahead of the game long before Americans got into it. In fact, even in California, where they were practicing eugenics, they were sterilizing, people that like what we used to call retarded people, special needs now. They would just, sterilize them so they couldn't reproduce. But what people don't realize, in the places where they were doing that, in California, they named mountains in the Sierra Nevada after German guys that were pushing that stuff. Okay, and so there's some mountains in Sierra Nevada that are named after these men.
Do you remember any of
Mount
those?
Hakel is one of them.
Mount Hakel.
And there's a few other, starts with the M. I forget his name now because my memory is not all that great. But he was Mendel, I think it is. And anyway, I can't remember. There's like 2 or 3 different names. So, and they were named back in the early 1900s, 1800s. So these men are really the foundations of eugenics. The other thing that went on with eugenics, Germany versus America, is that in Germany, they started killing people. It wasn't merely sterilizing people, they were killing them. So the retarded, the special needs, they would just take them into the room and just put them to death.
Now, I understand
and the idea was this is going to be humane for society. It's going to be biological health for everybody. This was not something they understood to be something cruel. It's something that needs to be done in order to weed out society, because we have too many weeds because of the Judeo-Christian worldview that has given us a weak society where the survival of the fittest, the strong are ridiculed, and the weak are allowed to do whatever they want to, creating a biological health problem with our society.
Right, and then it would also then take pressure off the economy.
Yes.
That was
Right.
a big part of the
Yes,
argument
right,
for this.
right.
If we do this, if we dispose, and of course their language,
Useless eaters.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, of the feeble-minded,
Right.
then it would save the German economy X amount of over the course of a year.
And you're saving German society as well. You're making them more healthy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then next question is, was there a tipping point that tipped it over from thinking about how these things are important to actually putting it into action and going and actually doing the killing? Was there a tipping point that you know, or was it just a slow rollover?
They started they called the T4. They started that in the 1930s, and that's when they were starting to put people to death if they had health defects that they didn't assume that this is not a good thing. So they started that in the 1930s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me, and I remember my history, there's several factors that helped push this along.
Right.
One of them being the economic factor, the Great Depression.
I think that's a part of it, but I think the social Darwinism is the bigger argument, meaning that this is how nature is, survival of the fittest. For example, Hitler people called him Uncle Wolf. Okay. Now, Hitler called the SS, who basically was in charge of the eugenic program in a lot of different ways. He called them, these are my wolves. Okay. And of course, the other thing I didn't mention is that the Nazis were the first country in the world to protect wolves. They didn't have any, but they protected them anyway because they loved wolves. Okay. And so the whole point was that the wolves, what they do, you've heard this, it's propaganda, but they clean up they go after the animals that are no good, they're not healthy, and they make the herd healthy because they kill all of the animals that are not strong. So they were going to apply this to human society. And this is part of that, again, creator-creature distinction is now gone. Yeah. The holism is now here, organicism, okay, we're just all one happy family, and there's no distinction. And they were going to apply the laws of nature now to the human being. And the Jews and Christians elevated man above nature. That is false. That's an alien theology. That's not true. We are real. We are authentic. We are connected to the real world. We are a part of being, a part of nature. And so this is what they were trying to accomplish, to become healthy society. And we have to get rid of the Jews and Christians, their ideology, because it's making us weak. And we are celebrating the weak. And we have to stop that.
Wow. You mentioned in the car some of the different kind of symbolic things that illustrate their kind of worship of nature, like the way they named their weapon systems.
Right. Yeah.
So what were some of those?
Well, I mean, they named all of their. See, the Soviets, when they fought against the Germans, they had all these big humanistic names. Okay. Even like Operation Uranus. Okay, that's like the sky. The universe. The Nazis had all kinds of names connected to nature. So their tanks. Okay, you had the Tiger tanks. You had the Panthers. That they named the Wolf Pack. That was the submarines. Okay. Operation Blue. I mean, they were looking for the vast open blue skies of Russia. This is what sent them to Stalingrad. Operation Edelweiss. That's to the mountains of the Caucasus, like the Swiss Alps. So they had all these nature-based names that they used to characterize, this is why we're going to war.
Wow.
Okay, and people just ignore this. Operation Barbarossa, okay, it goes back to a pagan, king. I mean, he's got, and we haven't even talked about Hitler's home. I mean, he's up in the mountains.
Right.
He's in Bavaria. I mean,
The Eagles nest.
it's the prettiest place of Germany, if not in all the world. Humboldt, who I mentioned, said that valley where he lived most of the time, living a bohemian lifestyle for the most part, up at 11 o'clock in the morning, and anyway, that place is one of the most scenic areas in the world, very beautiful. And all of his war plans were made from there. He prided himself that I have time to think. I'm looking out on the outdoors and these rough mountains, and we need to follow the roughness of the mountains and nature itself to bring about what needs to take place to make man healthy again.
Wow.
And we will be the leaders of this. Germany will lead the way. Yeah.
Okay, this is fascinating story. So, have we gotten into the book?
Yeah, no, we've covered it quite a bit. Yeah, we've done great.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done pretty good. Did we give a general frame? Not bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
But if I have a criticism, Mark, of your book, one criticism. This is horrible.
It's okay.
This is horrible. But you didn't include Otto Rahn,
Well,
Himmler's mystic.
right. I got it. Yeah.
I was like,
It's just,
I know, it's just too much.
I mean,
I get
there
that.
is the mysticism. I kind of left it out because that's Himmler's stuff.
yeah.
And
know,
I kind
know.
of what I wanted to do was feature Hitler in this most of all because
Yes.
they're trying to separate Hitler from this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot of quotes about him, and I show how, regardless of, Hitler may have not been a mystic really, like Himmler, but still he is guilty of the same.
Oh, yeah.
And so every National Socialist that was a leader, he was green in one way or another. So with Hitler, he was green with regard to vegetarianism, and people debate that too, but also he was an animal lover. He did love the animals, and it's true. Then Himmler, he was just an environmentalist in general. I mean, he really was. The SS was the greenest part of the National Socialism. Then you have Goering. I mean, he was in charge of all of the green stuff going on in Germany at that time. He was the guy that took it over. He loved animals too. He would walk around Berlin with a lion on a leash. 1936 Olympics, he had a lion on a leash. And everybody, wow, what's going on?
Well-trained lion?
Yeah, well, he was young.
Yeah.
And then you have Hess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying these names correctly, but from English, you say Hess. I think it's like Huss or something, whatever. But Hess, he loved organic food. And he was also an environmentalist. Albert Speer, he was the first green builder. Okay, then you had sustainability construction also with the guy that he replaced, the first one. I forget his name now. But anyway, he was all very involved with the green movement that Speer took his job after he died in a strange accident. And so all of these men they were compromised with it in some way. They weren't all, Hitler was not into the preserving forest lands. However, his Eva Braun, okay, and also Lena Riefenstahl was connected to this, so we've already talked about. They actually produced a documentary on Hitler's area that they seized. They actually took away, stole property, and forced people to give up their property and give it to the Fuhrer so he could have his big park around his home. They had they did a film on the nature preserves and the animals, the deer, and all that kind of stuff. Leni Riefenstahl filmed it.
So, okay, so one thing I think, because we are kind of running into a time limit, and we've given a really good overview of your book, and but maybe could you contrast the green movements and the ideology behind this nature-based worship with what is the biblical standard for how we are supposed to deal with nature? Because certainly the Bible doesn't give us license to just go out and exploit nature and do whatever the heck we want with it.
Well, I got it. I get the point there, but the Bible does strongly teach that nature is sacrificed for the well-being of man.
Okay.
And we have this with animal sacrifices. And we live in a fallen world, okay? Right. And so the ugly truth of the situation is that for man to live, nature has to be sacrificed. And it's not a pretty thing. And in my opinion, what God is doing, he's teaching us that we live in a fallen world. And we deal with it every day. And we're trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, today our environmental movement wants a clean world, but they don't want to clean up their lives individually, okay? So they want all kinds of clean things outside, but inside it's dirty. And so the only way to deal with that kind of stuff is going to be through the sacrifice of the Son of God. And God used the troubles of nature that we all have, and of course, as a part of that.
Yeah. So,
but the original plan, and I think we still do that to some extent, but it cannot be perfected. God's original plan was for Adam to convert the wilderness into a garden, and the Garden of Eden was the model to bring that about. So God planted the garden after he made him, and then Adam named all the animals. Everybody was happy, and then of course Eve shows up. And so Adam's job, subdue and fill the earth. Okay, they were to turn the wilderness into a garden. And by the way, animals love gardens. I'm a farmer. I'm a farmer. They're there. Okay, so this idea that animals love the wilderness is not true. They're there because it's survival.
They have to survive in the wilderness. But yeah, they would certainly, I mean,
it's tough out there.
They would certainly.
Mosquitoes are bad in,
yes, they are.
In Manitoba in the summertime. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So I'd like to just quickly throw something into this regarding from the biblical position. I think there's a couple of concepts that come into play. Number one, nature has importance and value because of the one who made it.
Yeah.
That always goes. If we're going to develop a theology of ecology,
right,
it always has to point back to God.
Right.
100% of the time, it's His.
He's the creator.
That's right. He's the
artist.
He's the artist. He's the creator. He's the one who made it. He's the one who will destroy it and then remake it.
Yeah.
Which He's already done with the flood, and we see that His hand is involved.
We're living in the junkyard of the flood right now.
Yeah. Well, actually, from an erosion point of view, we sure are. Especially when you travel across the western U.S. and down into some of the watersheds. Oh, it's amazing. I love it. But we're living, we can't forget that it has value because of the one who made it. And then when it comes,
if you take that away, see, it loses its value.
Right away, it loses.
And then it also loses its desire really to take care of it in a proper way.
Right. And then when it comes to taking care of it in a proper way, it really is an issue more about, do we allow the person who has the property to take care of their property?
Yes.
I don't go and dump a bunch of used oil on my neighbor's. I don't. On my neighbor's property.
My own home too. I mean,
exactly. You don't. You just don't.
You take care of it.
Right. There's a measure of common sense.
Private property is important.
Right. And you take away private property. This is the irony of the Soviet Union. And you can speak to this way better than I can.
Even at home here in America.
True. You take away private property, it becomes collective property. Nobody takes care of it.
Now all the forests, the national forests that we've tried to preserve are burning down, and they're full of bugs.
Right. The pine beetles have just decimated.
So the loggers can't. Yeah, the loggers can't cut them down, but the bugs can have them.
Yeah. And then it creates a massive, huge tinderbox.
Exactly.
And it lights fire, and then the town of Jasper burns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God never made this planet not to be tinkered with.
Right.
And man, his responsibility is subdue and fill it. And these are things that the environmental movement is deeply against. And so sadly, what's happened is that instead of racism, where environmentalism really began in Germany in 1800s, what we have now is sort of an anti-humanism in general. Mm-hmm. So they we're beyond the racism. Okay, fine, but now you are against people in general. So you have people like Ted Turner, where he says, well, I think 300 million people would be a nice population, for the planet. And you're thinking, well, right, I mean, you get rid of what most of the population of the planet. I mean,
and I think that's an important thing to recognize. Is what we're talking about is, it really does. I've seen this for 30, 40 years. I remember hearing about it. When I first started kind of thinking about these things in high school, and seeing that there was a general sense among the environmentalists that
too many people,
and
too many people.
It's interesting.
Too many people.
In the movie,
too many people. in this propaganda.
In the movie The Matrix, they had the AI agent that is interrogating one of the humans, and he says, "I've done a study of your species." He said every living organism on this planet goes out and develops an equilibrium with its surrounding nature,
which is not true.
This is what he said.
Right.
He said, except human beings. that human beings go into an area and they use up all the resources, and then they move into another area and they use up all the resources. He says, what other organism does that? A virus. He said, that's what human beings are. Right. They're a virus. Human beings are a disease, the cancer of this planet. And even though...
So there's a eugenic argument, also health, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people don't realize, the worst of the worst during the Holocaust were the doctors.
Yes.
They were the worst. And they're all, Mengele was a greener. He was a ecologically minded person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back in 1997, I went to my very first international event. Robert Mueller, the former Undersecretary General for the United Nations, was the person leading the event. He keynoted, and he was with us the whole time, and everybody loved him. It was an education event, Global Citizenship 2000 Youth Congress. Robert Mueller boasted to us, my jaw was on the ground, he boasted to us that through his policies at the United Nations, because he helped establish 11 specialized agencies within the UN, including their division on population, that through his work, he had prevented the birth, that's how he worded it, prevented the birth of 2.2 billion children.
Oh boy, he's proud of it.
Yes. It was a point of pride. And everybody around him was like, oh, this is amazing, what we've done for the planet.
See, eugenics is still with us, guys. I mean, it hasn't gone anywhere.
I know.
And now it's with AI, it'll make what the Nazis were doing primitive, look primitive.
Which is, I had a book years ago, somewhere in my storage, called Hitler's Cross, and it talked about the...
Yes, right, I've read that, yes.
Yes.
I think at Lutzer. Yeah.
Right, yes. Yeah. And it was...
yeah. Right. But from Washington State is close enough. Yeah.
But yeah, he talks about how Hitler in the grand spiritual, looking back, from a bird's eye view, the grand spiritual idea here, Nazism was a microcosm of what of what Satan intends to do over the entire world.
Well, Hitler defined fascism as a spontaneous return to the traditions of Rome. This is completely ignored, and they get into all these esoteric discussions. What is fascism? Okay, and it has nothing to do with reality. Let's just follow the fear. And he's probably talking about Italy. Okay, but he himself, he prided himself in Spartan. Even the Greco-Roman world is what he wanted to bring back, and that means you need to get rid of the Jews and Christians. Christians would have been number two. That they were after the war, get rid of the Jews, and Christians are number two. And Hitler just viewed the Christians as a Jewish heresy. So it was not Timmy; it was one and the same. And so that was going to be the plan.
Well, Mark, this has been awesome.
Yeah, this has
been a fascinating
conversation. We've had an audience here.
I know, and we're doing this.
You guys should be in bed. What's going on?
And just so that people listening to this later understand, this is being done in a hotel, basically a lobby area. So we've got the sound of ice machines going and people's dogs and everything else. So that's why there's a little bit of noise here. But this has been awesome.
When I was in Armenia, Jacob Persley, friend of mine, a Christian guy, he invited me to teach a seminar in Agarak, which is in Armenia, right on the Iranian border. And he's got plans to, once Iran falls, to try to get in there and do evangelistic work. But anyway, you have to drive through these mountains. It's a long drive. And so on the way back, he just did an interview. Kim and I were in the car, and he just talking about this book. And
well, before we wrap up,
excuse me.
Let me just can you just tell our listeners how they could follow you, or where they could get a copy of your book? And you have two books, actually. We only talked about one of them, but
Nazi Ecology, you can get it online, Amazon, but other venues too online, no problem.
Okay.
So you should be able to order it that way. I live, in the former Soviet Union. I live in Ukraine right now. I have no following. I have no time.
Do you have a website? Do you have a newsletter?
I do, but I don't. It's called R. Mark Musser. Deals with articles that I used to write when I had time. I used to write a lot of articles. They were posted on national websites and stuff, but I haven't done that for a long time.
Okay, so they could find your old work.
The old stuff is there, but it's dated.
rmarkmusser.com.
Yeah. Our new website is our mission website. It's called the Ararat Rainier East-West Fellowship. And I love nature. Look, I climb mountains. I mean, Mount Ararat is an amazing mountain in Armenia. It's actually in Turkey, but you can see the best view from Armenia. And then also Washington State has Mount Rainier. And so, I'm not a person that hates nature and all this kind of stuff. I just don't like, really, environmentalism is very legalistic, and they're trying to save nature through legalism. And it's not going to work. I mean, and we have history lessons from the past to show where these things can lead. And one of those bad history lessons is National Socialism.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time, and
and thanks to our audience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
This is great.
Okay, so we'll sign off.
So your name?
All right, let me go on and just turn this off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll sign off for our audience. Thank you for joining us, and we'll hope you'll join us again for the future. Bye. Well, there you have it, friends. Hope you enjoyed this discussion, this interview with Mark Musser, a very eminent scholar on Nazi Germany, National Socialism, and the underlying worldview behind it, which is very connected to the belief in the natural man and the need to preserve the environment as some sort of mystical belief system. I'm not trying to make any kind of conclusions or statements about the current environmental movement that is in the Western world today. These are just discussions of historical facts that are very well documented. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you next time.